an elite sports person for many years. I was a 3-time world champion in kayaking, a dual Olympian, dual Olympic medalist. And then my world came crashing down. I was basically suspended from sport. I had an incident and my whole livelihood, my whole career, my whole reputation, everything was gone overnight. And I wasn't prepared for it. I'd never seen this coming, and I didn't receive any support from anyone or anywhere. I had family support, they were great, but I needed professional help. And I guess that led to me rebelling and seeking my thrills from other sources. So once upon a time, sport, it was my addiction. I got my highs from there, from elite sport, from success. When that was gone, I started looking elsewhere, and that led me towards using ecstasy. And over time again, the ecstasy became more and more a problem. I was using more and more, and it was a desensitization in the end. In the end, I didn't see the problem. I didn't see it affecting anyone else, but I was blind, and it got to the stage where I became involved in the selling of drugs. So because I was so comfortable using, I then became comfortable selling, and it's something I could never have seen that I'd end up doing, and it's not something I'm proud of, but it is what it is. I've done those things, and I've paid a severe price. I ended up being charged, doing 4 years jail, and I'm now on the other side. So I've come to understand that there was a reason these things happened. It wasn't weak will, it wasn't just my stupidity. I did have issues going on that I should have had and dealt with earlier.
All of the research into addiction now is telling us that addiction is a chronic brain disease, and it's affecting the reward pathways in the brain. So this is evidenced by medical bodies like the American Society of Addiction Medicine and the National Institute of Drug Abuse in America. And primarily addiction is affecting the transmission of a brain chemical called dopamine, which means that people that are suffering from this addiction have a blunted pleasure response to life, because dopamine is the chemical that provides us with reward and pleasure. So it does seem that athletes are overrepresented amongst addicts, and the reason for this seems to be that they will self-medicate with the highly rewarding activity of winning in sports before they would use substances or abuse alcohol. When they retire, they really are at great risk of switching from the reward that they gain from their high-achieving sports activities to substance and alcohol abuse. Athletes are probably at greater risk of addiction than the average member of the population.
When I look back in hindsight, my addiction's been there for many years. I was self-medicating through my sport. I was trained and bred we were trained every day to push the limits, to not do anything in half. We always were, every session, every day, push the limits, and that for me was feeding my addiction. I loved training. I loved being the best at training. I loved kind of beating other guys. Competition on top of that was even a bigger rush, bigger high. For me, looking back there, they were positive things in my life then. It wasn't a problem, but my addiction was being fed through sport. And once that was gone, I found myself in a position I no longer had I wasn't getting the rush, I wasn't getting the feed. And that led me to, I guess, the position I found myself in, where I turned to drugs. And I didn't understand why, I didn't know why, and it got to the point where the only way I could feel good and get my rushes was by using drugs. But I now know why. At least I can now work on my future. I can work on a future plan. Until then, until I understood, I was lost. Living in an environment with other people with similar problems from all different walks of life, all different backgrounds, it's been unbelievable for me. It's something I hid from, and I've come here, and you can't hide from it. Everyone's so open about their problems, and it's therapeutic. I needed to get to the root of my problem, and I need to get it dealt with in an environment away from my other triggers, away from the things that led me to being here. So for me to come to Thailand was an easy choice. I came here a little anxious, but within my first day I was very comfortable, and you're treated as a person, you're treated as an individual. I love the resort style accommodation. The food in particular it's catered to all my needs. The people, the Thai people, are very beautiful people. It's a very productive environment, and my stay here has been made totally enjoyable by the the food, the accommodation, and the people here, and also the exercise programs. That really, that's something I can relate to. The trainers are very knowledgeable and very, they're very lovely people. I've enjoyed my time. I've done some Thai kickboxing and really got a lot from that. So for them, I think was a challenge with an Olympian coming here, but I got a lot from them. They've got a lot to offer, and I see what they do with the other clients. It's really positive. It's something I've loved. It's been a big part of my stay here.
Probably one of the most healing aspects of treatment here at the cabin, apart from the counselling program, is location. So we are in chic jungle, you might call it, on a riverside location next to the mountains, lots of mature trees. It's a very healing environment as opposed to a hospital site or a very clinical environment like that. In addition to that is our outward bounds activities that we do on Sundays. These are things like rock climbing, rafting, kayaking, things which get people back into the natural environment. And on top of that, we have a very heavy emphasis on physical activity. So we do believe that exercise is extremely important for people in recovery, so they can gain physical recovery as well as emotional and mental recovery. And then there's the healthy Thai food that we serve as well, which is very healing for clients.
I've been involved on a small scale in rehabilitation in Australia, and for me, I didn't get what I was looking for. It's more harm minimisation over there. So it's more, they teach you to use drugs but use them safely. But it's not addressing the problem, and that's not a long-term solution. That's just setting you up. You're a time bomb. Here at the cabin, it's inpatient. You're dealing with your problems. You're not just treading around them lightly. The program's designed to get to the root of the problem.
Because we know that addiction is a chronic brain disease which affects the reward pathways in the brain, we have to use a certain method to treat it. Now, there are 4 very strongly evidence-based methods for treating substance abuse problems and gambling processes which are also addictive. 2 of them are MI and MET. These are counselling models which are used to help people cut down drinking. But the problem with most people that come to rehab is they've found that they can no longer control their drinking or their drug use or their gambling. They have an inability to control, and they are dependent on substances. These people need to use 2 other counselling methods which are very evidence-based, and those are CBT and 12 steps. So what we do at the cabin is we hybridise those 2 methods. So we show clients how to work the 12 steps using CBT tools, and those are the 2 most strongly evidence-based methods for abstinence-orientated treatment for people who are unable to control their drug use and are dependent on drugs or alcohol.
To come here and to actually take ownership, to speak in group in front of people, to stand up in front of everyone and tell your story, to be honest, it broke all the fears I had, and it's been a very positive, very strong learning situation for me. I've got so much from it, and not just from me being able to express myself, to listen to other people. It's been so powerful. What I've really noticed, not with yourself, just with you, but also all the counsellors and everyone involved here, they've all been down this path. They've all not just teaching from textbook, they've actually lived and walked in these shoes and have experience, and to be able to relate to someone, to have someone who's living proof that, hey, this can be, you can do something about it, you can create change, you can still live a normal life and be successful. That's been really powerful. For me to actually improve myself, I need to just step back sometimes. I need to just slow down life. It doesn't need to be that crazy, and it doesn't need to be as chaotic as we think. And I think there's a lot of benefit in the relaxation and meditation techniques here, and to be in the home place of meditation and all those things. This is the perfect environment. It feels really natural here, and it's something I've actually been able to embrace quite easily. I admit I was very naive before coming here. I was unaware of my own addiction problems that I was suffering, and I think it's a common thing with a lot of people. It's probably something I've lived with my whole life, and previously my sport had been my addiction. I focused all my efforts. It gave me my fixes and my rushes. And when I found myself in a position where I no longer had sport, the disease was already there. Drugs wasn't the addiction. The drugs is a byproduct. I went looking for another high, I went looking for another rush, and as a result, I found that in a pill, and I started using socially, recreationally, and it became a problem. I didn't know why I was doing these things. I didn't know I had a disease. I didn't know I had these problems going on, and it wasn't until I've come here and learnt that addiction is a disease. There is a chemistry going on that there's a reason why we do these things, and until you understand it, you can't work towards controlling it. You'll never cure it, but you can live with it.
They'll take away with them a 3-circle recovery plan. 3 Circles is another 12-step model which also works with process addictions and enables people to tailor their treatment in terms of their abstinence. So some people may have long-term medications that they need to stay on, and 3 Circle plan will take that into account. It also secularizes the 12 steps and takes the religious terminology out of it. It's color-coded, very easy to follow, and one of the main things it focuses on is relapse prevention. So in that, a client will have a plan of the triggers they must avoid, the belief systems and negative thought processes they must avoid, the disturbing feelings that they must try not to engage in, and behaviors which would put them at risk.
The actual program itself here it gives you tools, and it's the tools I've picked up already. It's made me feel a lot better about myself. It's given me a direction. It's a program that's been proven to work, and so I now know, with having used some of these tools, that there are triggers. I'm going to face these triggers in the future. I can't live in a bubble. And I now know to look for these things. I now have a plan in place, and when these alarm bells go off, I've got actions in place. I know people I can call. I know there's directions, there's places I can go to for help. I'm going to need support, and it sets up a support network that allows me to continue on a safe journey, not just for today, but tomorrow, but for the future. And if I stick to the program, I know success will follow.